podcast from Capgemini, and this week in partnership with Google Cloud at Google Cloud Next 2025. I'm Dave Chapman.
I'm Esmee van der Giezen.
And I'm Rob Kernahan.
And I am delighted to say that joining us for today's look at the Fortune 500 and trying to understand where they are in terms of understanding the ever accelerating world of digital and AI, we've got Gina Fratarcangeli, Managing Director. For
the listeners, there was a lot of practice for that name and a lot of discussion.
Nailed.
Dave
I'm not sure I pulled it off.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't your stellar, your usual stellar performance.
I can only apologise. Thank you for tolerating me. Anyway, so it's lovely to see you. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
It's absolutely our pleasure. And busy week?
Insane, but all goodness.
Yes.
All great. Great time meeting with customers and partners and just spending time.
What is it about the shows that you sort of particularly value?
I think the casual conversations and everyone's openness and willingness to have those conversations and watching all the things that we've been learning about, AI is going so fast. And at Google, I'm overwhelmed with the volume of content that I'm learning. So I can't even imagine what CXOs who are trying to run their business and figure out the impact are trying to process. It's so much.
Well, funnily enough, we had one of your colleagues on yesterday.
Okay.
And he's right involved in the heart of, he runs Cloud AI.
Yes.
And it was a real pleasure to talk to him because I actually got to have a conversation about how are you creating the speed? Yeah, really good answer on that. And then a bit later on, he made a reference to that. It's like, sometimes it's like, so much is so overwhelming. I'm like, dude, but you're setting the pace.
It's you.
Just give us the rest of us a chance.
No, I'm an AI ambassador at Google. And so we get on the calls and they just start showing the product roadmap. And like, this is not like in the next 3 months, like this is this week's and this is next week's. The volume that the engineers are putting out is just like nothing I've ever seen in my career.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Right? And we've said this a couple of times this week that I think this one in particular, I mean, with Google Next for the last couple of years has had some good stuff going on in it. And, the initial repositioning of the new way to cloud and things like that. Kind of it's all very interesting and stuff. But this one really does feel like a series of very notable builds on what's been sort of foundational before, that is now creating a toolbox that's like insanely powerful.
Right. And doing the transition from kind of a use case POV scenario where they're bright, shiny objects that could be interesting to deploy to enterprise production level deployments and driving real business impact that I think the Fortune 500 CEOs are most interested in.
Well, let's come to that in a second. I'm looking forward to digging into that. But while we're on announcements and things, Robert, what's today's headline?
This one, I think, is quite big, actually, for those who are highly regulated or need to be very secure, which was what Google have done with GDC, Distributed Cloud. And they basically put their AI stack on that. So you can have your own in your own data center if you need be. And some do need that. You get all your AI agent capability, the Vertex capability, you get the enhanced security and the NVIDIA built in as well. So you can have your own at home and build AI in the way others can do in the public cloud. So that is a massive enablement for many organizations who often lag the ability to use this technology. So you talk about your adoption lag, and we gone that through the show for like defense or for financial services or for governments. This is really very important because you get the benefit of what is agents and agent capability with all the latest kit and software.
How does the digital supply chain work in that circumstance? So you've got the kit locally and the software locally. Is it still connected back to the public cloud? It can run completely independently.
You can disconnect, and there's a model where you can have a company manage it for you. And it's in yours, and it doesn't talk home, and you get the update. So it is actually, from a security perspective, air-gapped.
It's amazing. And I was at a breakfast this morning with an executive of a bank, executive of a healthcare company, and an executive of a utility company.
Right, all very regulated.
All very regulated, all very excited about this product offering because now they can start thinking about things in a different way and getting their leadership comfortable. Because a lot of those folks, the first thing is, what can it do? The stakeholders, business stakeholders are asking the question, what can it do? And the second thing they're asking the CISOs and the CTOs are, how are you going to keep me safe?
Yeah.
And so this is a very elegant and simple answer in this new environment to how we're keeping them safe.
And you always say you can still use public cloud
Exactly.
to build for the lower. So you can develop there, but then port it into this architecture where it needs to be slightly more secure, and you get that continuum. So it's still low friction development, highly automated, all the infrastructure as codes there, and it solves a lot of big issues for these types of organizations.
You say it's the full AI stack as well. So
Yeah,
it's like
basically, it's
so
full
a
AI
sovereign AI solution as well as a
So
sovereign
you could
cloud
build a
solution.
sovereign AI in a sovereign data center with sovereign controls if you want to.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
That's good.
There's going to be a lot of very excited organizations about that.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's going to be one to watch, isn't it? So let's come on to organizations. And you work with the Fortune 500 quite regularly, I
Yes.
think. Just sort of explain what it is that you do with them to start with. Just paint a bit of a picture of a day in a life.
Sure. So I manage all the partnerships with all the large consulting companies for North America. And what's really transpired in the last 2 years because of AI is a need in the market to be meeting with CXOs of Fortune 500 companies collectively with consulting firms and Google on the technology side to sit down together with those CXOs and say, okay, consulting partner, you have great industry expertise of hundreds of years of that. Google, you have great technology expertise. Here's the business problem I've got that we haven't been able to solve. How can the three of us sit down together and solve that? So we're really coming up with first of a kind solutions, leveraging AI in ways that, because the data was so segregated before, we couldn't do. With the data transformations underway, we can really drive just all sorts of new transformation plays.
As we were talking a little bit earlier around the announcements and the conference, you were making reference to how difficult it must be for CXOs who are effectively running businesses that are often very little to do with technology. They just need that enablement, and they're having to process all of this stuff. Give us a bit of an insight into the types of conversations you're having with C-level at the moment and sort of where their heads are at, how they're struggling with that.
Yeah, it's surprising because I live in a nice Google bubble wrapped around with a thought leadership innovation consulting bubble around that. And you forget when you come out of those bubbles, CXOs trying to run their businesses. How in the world are they going to learn about all the AI? And then how are they going to think about deploying all that AI? Last week I was presenting to a room of about 100 chief investment officers in New York. And I asked the question, how many of you are using AI? A few hands went up. And then I asked the question, how many of you are using anything agentic with AI? 2 out of a room of 100.
Right.
And then I said, how many do you even know what agent is? And the same 2 only raised their hand. So it's a lot for them to be thinking through.
Well, you're right about the bubble, and it's like when we spend our time kind of on the leading edge of where you are, sometimes you do have to shift gears quite dramatically, don't you, to go back into rooms where sometimes they're even in their early stages of cloud adoption and trying to get their heads around product-centric working and things like that.
Right.
And what conversation are they having about AI? So the ones that are at least aware of, we need to do something.
Yeah.
How are they generally trying to get into those conversations?
No, that's a good question. How they're starting to think about it is, how can we get a tip of the spear win, if you will, right? How can we get adoption? So what kind of use cases, very internally focused, what kind of internal use cases could we get to start increasing the groundswell of adoption and understanding that there is business impact, that their IT team has made sure things are going to be secure to get started? So long-winded way of saying, I see a lot of use cases, kind of point solution use cases, and then we're starting to think about how we string those use cases together. Right.
And I've been thinking about, in my head, I've been thinking about it as a scaling framework where, like at the front end, you've got some forms of Gen AI, and multimodal, multi-channel interfaces, and those could be kind of designed to represent the tone of voice of a company or the values of that company. And obviously they've got access to the data in that company. So at that point, you can be effectively engaging with your company as an intelligent entity.
Yep.
And then underneath that, you've got, I don't know, layers of industry, cloud and IoT and things like that, that effectively then allow you to execute as well as just get data. It feels like, particularly with the multi-agent stuff that's come out this week, that we're there, right, from an enablement point of view. I mean, stringing it all together and making that work is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
But it does feel like we've at least got the toolkit now.
Correct. I think that's a great way to say it. We've got the toolkit now. So how do we get business leaders to think differently about how to leverage that toolkit?
Right.
I encourage people to think about your workflow, right? My background is management consulting as well. So think about the workflow that you need to go through to get things done. And then along that workflow, think about the individual tasks that need to get performed. And within that individual task, how can you use AI to potentially do that task completely for you or optimize that task? And then how do you string all those agentic tasks together into one agentic workflow, whereby then, using the data, you have a human in the loop, but potentially very quickly down the road, the AI learns from that experience, the AI gets better, the AI uses all the different times it processes it to be correcting itself. So then perhaps there is no longer a human needed in the loop. But I feel it is less scary for executives to think about the tasks, bite-sized chunks of use cases that you can say, see, that piece went okay. See, this piece went okay. And then
the risk always kicks in to go, do I want to turf it all over and accept the risk? And it's how do you get them to understand that actually probably less risky than using lots of humans chained together.
Absolutely.
They make loads of mistakes. So,
almost certainly true.
Now that we have the toolkit, so we have the toolkit in place, we have tech in place. What do you see in the partner ecosystem? Because it also requires a different type of, I think, behavior towards each other as partners as well. Do you see anything happening there?
Yeah, I think the partner ecosystem is starting to work well together to help encourage customers and to think about the operational change that they need to deploy. So the technology is there, the tools are there. What needs to happen now? The people need to change, and the people need to be willing to change their process. So, you need management consultants who are trusted advisors who have gone through time, and whether it was the internet or whether it was ERP, right? Like helping big companies understand there is a more efficient way to do every single task that they're kind of performing right now, and technology can enable that. So using trusted advisors like management consultants to help them navigate the business transformation that needs to happen. Mm-hmm.
And I do wonder about how the adoption will really kick in with what we're talking about in big organizations. And will there be one that does it, gets massive advantage off the back, and then everybody has to run to catch up? Or will it be this gradual evolution of all at the same time? And I do think one will embrace it, take that leap, and then everybody will see the results and go, "Oh my, run!" Yeah.
Well, you see that as a heritage company, though, or as a fast scaling startup. It's hard to say.
So there's two, isn't it? There's the agentic only organizations that are being created. If they work, they'll outpace the heritage.
Yeah.
Or it might be a bold new part of a heritage spins off and does something dramatic, and the rest of the company has to catch up. But I do wonder about the profiles of how it will get. It will go wide scale. It will happen. It's just how does that adoption occur?
I was going to say beyond the sort of POC your way into it, are you seeing any kind of patterns emerging like that yet?
Yeah, it's interesting when you said that. It took me back to the internet in 1995, right? Where back then companies would say, we're going to start a subsidiary that's going to be the .com portion, right? And like sometimes they actually surpass the traditional company. I think about AI even more ubiquitous than that. So you asked the question, what am I starting to see in this space? I think it is the companies with strong leadership who recognize I don't have all the answers, but I need to be, as a CXO, driving everyone. And so my favorite examples are the CXOs, and there's a few of them out there who are saying, at our next leadership meeting, I expect you to tell me how AI is going to help you do your process better, more effectively. And that can be, creating products, running your IT, running finance, running your back office processes. So I love the companies right now that have a strong leadership who are saying, I know we don't have all the answers, but let's go out and you're the subject matter expert in your functional area. How should you be adopting AI? And let's go start testing things. And I like testing things that are internal functions, all the business process stuff. So it's safe within your firewall. And if something goes wrong, which it probably won't, but if something does go wrong, it's internally focused first.
Yeah, I like your point there, because I think intentional leadership in transformation is weirdly thin on the ground.
Yeah,
I would observe that lots of organizations, I don't know whether they're just not curious enough, they don't have the investments. I don't know what it is, and I think that permeates through organizations where you get ones where they've got a middle management layer who seem just content to keeping on doing things. And so what really marks out a good intentional leader for you? When it might be an example you have or a series of traits.
That's a good question. I am always looking for what's coming. And so I think an intellectually curious leader who's willing to push the bar without all the answers, right? I think making sure your IT team and your CISO team says you're safe, but keep challenging the bar. And how can we think about it differently? Always coming back to, and we're safe, right? Right, CTO, right? So having a core leadership team that gets your innovation-led approach to everything, and making sure your whole kind of leadership team has that approach. That's what I think is going to be successful in the future.
That resonates. And the other sort of dimension to this for me, which I don't think is moving as fast as I actually expected it to, is the notion of everybody having digital skills and digital understanding. So the way I think about it is, every senior leader has got to understand their finance. Right. If you don't understand your budget, you literally wouldn't have a job there anymore. I think digital is pretty much at par now with that.
I love it. I think that's a phenomenal way to approach it. And I hope more leaders start thinking that way, right? So every meeting, if I were a leader at an outside company, just how are you using AI? How are you, VP, EVP, SVP, using AI?
Right.
And the answer better not be I'm not. Because what you can do? You can put into Gemini, if I'm a CFO, how should I be using AI? And it will literally tell you what you should be doing. So
give you some links.
If you only have 5 minutes before the meeting, you can use an agent to tell you what you should say at the meeting. It's that powerful.
Right. And that easy. And that's the key, right? And that easy. And I think but I guess it's going to keep getting easier. A year ago, when people would ask me what career should I be telling my kids to go into, or what should I make sure my team knows, it was prompt engineering.
Right.
And you're not going to need even that. Like, you're going to need basic skills at your functional area and be able to think about asking the right questions. And the AI is going to pull from the right LLMs to get the information you want based on similar questions. So, it's just going to be changing fast, and everyone's going to have to be nimble.
I thought one of the other really good announcements this week was being able to use external data sets.
Yes.
Grounding,
I keep forgetting that word.
Enhanced grounding.
It's a very good word, that grounding.
Yeah.
Because I think most folks are like, oh, but isn't it going to hallucinate? And we're going to start seeing a lot less of that with the grounding, because now if you are able to quickly see where the information came from, again, that's going to give people a sense of calm and peace Well,
you would think that what it's almost certainly going to promote is an explosion of data services. So, like that whole thing from a few years ago, like data is the new oil. Where it wasn't really, because nobody was really effectively selling their data beyond organizations that were literally mining and selling data.
Right.
This, though, feels wholly different, because any organization that's got any kind of data could, with one API, you're sort of providing trusted data sources. And that, I think, is game changing too. So when you bring that together, it's like an all-knowing and trusted intelligence that then you can link together with other intelligences. Quite profound.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. And how do executives of Fortune 500 companies ensure their data is accurate, their data is clean, their data is well organized, so that they get as much easy access to utilization of their data as possible?
Yeah. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today. What a great conversation and sharing us your insights into the Fortune 500. It was a good portrait of where we are, I think. If you sort of cast forward though, and choose your time frame, it certainly won't be 5 years. I think the world will be different by then. So let's say it's 6 months, 18 months. Mm-hmm. How do you see the adoption lag changing? Are people leaning into it enough to close that down a little bit, or do you think that it might grow because it's so difficult to assimilate some of this stuff?
No, I absolutely think it will be growing. I think in the next year, 18 months, we're going to have enough data points of impact that I actually think it'll start impacting labor and volume of employees doing tasks. So I absolutely believe there will be a lot of job displacement. And I hope a whole bunch of folks are continuing to learn. So you really want to get super knowledgeable on your industry and your tasks and be the person adopting AI so that
be on
you're
the right side of the change.
Right.
Yeah, I see that too. Thanks again. Now, before we let you go, with this explosion of new and interesting technologies, it's really brought to mind for us Arthur C. Clarke's third law, which is any technology that's sufficiently powerful is indistinguishable from magic. Mm-hmm. So we've been talking about magic all week and the magical experiences you can get from some of these things. I wonder, who was your favorite magician when you were growing up?
Well, my favorite magician was myself, because in fourth grade,
that might be the best answer we've had.
I got a Blackstone magic kit for Christmas.
Amazing.
That is all I wanted. And that trick where you had to pour the water out of the little bottle, but you had to cover the air hole with your finger. Yeah.
Very cool.
I was all about that magic show.
You don't see that anymore. I had like magic kits when I was young, and you go, it's the thing, it's gone, where's magic gone?
Yeah.
Well, it's obviously coming back through the tech.
And voila, it's here in AI.
Yeah. But it is strange. We were talking about, in the UK, you probably haven't heard of this guy. There was a magician in the UK called Paul Daniels.
Okay.
And he was like on Saturday night, primetime TV,
wow.
BBC One's main channel. Like he was huge.
Uh-huh.
Completely gone.
No
And
magic anymore.
No, like when does, I guess it's the, David Blaine's got a show at the moment on Disney Plus, hasn't he? So I guess that's the natural inheritor of it. But it's like, it's very little people doing card tricks.
Entertainment, right? We didn't have any tech or sophisticated
You guys
entertainment that we have now. So that was one of the forms of getting entertained.
Yeah.
A singer, a poet.
I was amazing. Just as you asked that question, I see my mom making fun of me because I used to go abracadabra, poof. That was my saying. Yeah, I was amazing. No,
how wonderful. Well, it's lovely to talk to you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed being here.
If you would like to discuss any of the issues on this week's show and how they might impact you and your business, please get in touch with us at cloudrealities@capgemini.com. We're all on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to connect and DM if you have questions for the show to tackle. And of course, please rate and subscribe to our podcast. It really helps us improve the show. A huge thanks to Gina. Our sound and editing wizards Ben and Louie, our producer Marcel, and of course to all our listeners. See you in Google's Reality Next.